This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Arthur Ashe, the great tennis player, who said, start where you are and do what you can with what you have. And so many little faith-based communities are just out in the community doing that, getting people toothpaste, toothbrushes and hearing aid batteries. Those sorts of things are happening all over the place, and it's such a privilege to see the hands and feet of Christ in action in that way.
I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that finds the good during the bad. And each episode we meet someone who's had a bit of a hard time but has found hope and healing along the way, and hopefully they inspire you to embrace the good in your world too. Episode 39, Reverend Claire Wright. What is church? A building used for worship? A community of believers that gather together on Sundays? Or is it something else entirely? Reverend Claire Wright believes she has experienced the true essence of church, and it looks nothing like a Sunday service. I've reached into the archives for this episode, but as we've seen over the past few years especially, history has a way of repeating itself, and the message is just as poignant now as it was when I recorded it. I spoke with Reverend Claire Wright in March of 2021, just over 18 months ago. The mid-north coast of New South Wales, Australia, had just experienced some of the worst flooding in history, and the water quickly gushed down to Sydney in the coming days. The region was still reeling from the 2019 bushfires, before being plunged into a global pandemic just weeks afterwards. Reverend Claire Wright is the Ministry Development Minister for the Uniting Church in the Manning Valley region, and she spoke with me about the loss in her community, but also the unique role of churches in times of struggle, which is a message she wishes for all churches to hear far and wide. Let's meet her. A reminder that this episode is from March of 2021, during major flooding across the state, including here in Sydney. Claire, you are on the ground up at the mid-north coast. Floodwaters have started to recede here in Sydney, but how is the situation where you are?
Well, as in your neck of the woods, I guess the waters are receding. The river is still visibly swollen in my own area, but as you say, the recovery effort is underway. We've moved from rescues largely to cleanups and the much, much longer process of recovery. Thank God we haven't had any deaths up here, I don't believe, but it's so much more than property damage. It's livelihoods. It's the morale of a community still reeling from last year's bushfires. So, yeah, the needs are only just beginning to emerge as the floodwaters recede.
Yeah, I think it's really hit us today being in the house and seeing what we've actually lost. Yeah, just trying to save what we can and what hasn't been ruined. My mother-in-law's house is this is her home, this is her everything.
I think it just hits me most because, like I said, Caleb's mum and stepdad have fought so hard to have a house, and they finally made it their home, and now everything's gone. I'm not so worried about my belongings, but my daughter, my partner's mum, they've just lost everything.
Let me paint a picture for you. The Manning Valley region is about 300 kilometres north of Sydney, along the coast of New South Wales. It's described by its traditional Aboriginal custodians as the place where the leaves touch the waters, from the mountains to the sea. It is a place filled with natural beauty, from mountains, waterfalls, beaches, lookouts, farmland. It's got it all. And its crown jewel is the Manning River, which cuts right through the region. And on a regular day, the river is tranquil. But in March of 2021, it was an entirely different story.
The relentless rain overnight and during the day has isolated a huge number of small towns on the mid-north coast, including here at Taree, which has seen a number of houses go underwater and even float away. Countless roads are cut off, including the M1 at Taree.
It's about 1.2 metres under at the moment, and it's going to get worse. It's going to keep rising.
The rainfall's been immense and record-breaking.
Taree is a farming town, pretty much at the centre of the region, known as the capital of the Manning. It's home to just shy of 30,000 people, but surrounding Taree are even smaller towns and villages, which threaten to be swept underwater in this natural disaster.
Hello, is anybody home?
Rescuers race door to door, searching for residents left behind.
Hello, anyone there?
The SES has also been kept incredibly busy, responding to about 1,000 calls for help between the Central Coast and Mid-North Coast, fixing roofs, power lines and fallen trees. With an increasing number of towns, roads and bridges cut off, authorities want people to stay inside and off the roads as more weather is on the way.
And those clips compiled from ABC News and 7 News. The emergency response kicked into gear quickly, providing relief for those who had lost everything. Claire, what does that recovery process look like right now?
Well, the emergency management plan kicked into gear fast, so the system has been working for people in evacuation centres and now in recovery centres. And it's wonderful that the various faith-based agencies, so our own Uniting Church and Anglicare, the Salvos, the Red Cross and the Adventists are an important part of that immediate service of access to help.
But not everyone trusted this system, and it wasn't available to everyone. This region had been burnt before, quite literally. Just over 12 months beforehand, devastating bushfires ripped through the Manning Valley, and people were feeling abandoned and unsupported.
On the ground, there are an awful lot of people who are, for various reasons, not necessarily able or equipped to access that system of getting help. So it might be internet access issues or transport. There are so many people who think the system is for other people who are, more worthy or worse off than they are.
People may have lost faith in one system, but Claire believes it is the responsibility of churches to meet the needs of community in times of struggle and literally be the hands and feet of Jesus for those who need it most.
There is a real need out at those ragged edges and those gaps for, faith-based communities and neighbours being neighbours to get in there and meet the smaller needs that are nevertheless, heavy burden for people. We are uniquely placed, I think, as communities of faith to use and build these networks of neighbours being neighbours to get the word out of how people can access the broader help that the agencies offer, to share stories, to give people a chance to grieve, to process, and just to meet needs wherever we encounter them. I've been thinking this week of one of those famous sayings by Arthur Ashe, the great tennis player, who said, start where you are and do what you can with what you have. And so many little church-based, faith-based communities are just out in the community doing that, getting people toothpaste and toothbrushes, getting people their hearing aid batteries. Those sorts of things are happening all over the place, and it's such a privilege to see the hands and feet of Christ in action in that way.
And sometimes it's the smallest communities that do the most mighty work, as Claire has experienced firsthand.
I have a little fellowship out at Coopernook, a little village that was cut off by floodwaters. Congregation of 3 people, but they also run an op shop, and they opened the little chapel-y church and op shop and had 27 people being fed, housed, given access to medications, given access to assessment by the emergency agencies. So they acted as an evacuation centre for many days with the amazing support of their tiny little community, donating bedding, donating food. They pooled everything that they had, and the church was just able to offer that hospitality space for that to happen. They did heroic things, and I'm told that on the Sunday morning, as everybody was clearing up the sleeping bags and the mattresses from the pews, somebody said, "Oh, but what about church this morning?" And the lady who was organising it said to her, "This is church. We are in that season of deep hope, and that's what the church is offering."
We are in a season of deep hope. And as we prepare for the coming of Jesus this Christmas season, Claire's words are as poignant as ever, even 18 months later. And once again, as parts of Australia are underwater, we as Christians have a chance to make a real difference, even from afar. So, how can you do that? How can you put that faith into action as communities on the outside looking in? Number one is targeted donation and support. Whenever natural disaster occurs, it's common for an influx of donated goods to come in, whether that is clothes, canned food, whatever the case. While the intention is noble and good, in practice, it can actually be quite unhelpful. In many places, people don't have the space to be able to store donations. Buildings have been damaged and the remaining ones are likely being used for evacuation centres. So it's always best to ask the community what they need and then do the best to meet that need. It's quite common for churches in cities or metropolitan regions like Sydney to have partnerships with churches in regional areas. So if your church has one of these partnerships in or near perhaps a disaster-affected area, it's best to ask the church directly what they need. Alternatively, many church organisations have disaster relief funds or flood appeals that you can donate to. These funds and organisations are specifically designed to help communities in times of need, and they work with churches in the local areas, so you know that your money is going to people directly affected on the ground. There are also fantastic Christian non-profits doing incredible work on the ground, not associated with any particular church, but work with local churches, businesses and government organisations to coordinate disaster response. One example is Convoys of Hope Australia. They're in Eugowra and Forbes right now, assisting with the current floods in the central west of New South Wales, with clean-up, supplying food hampers and essential supplies to those who have lost everything. That is just one example though. There are lots of fantastic organisations out there. You can simply do a quick Google search and you'll find lots of great places that you can directly donate to. And the final thing that I would add is prayer. Prayer is the most powerful tool in our toolkit as Christians. It's a direct passage and communion with God. It's easy in times of struggle to forget about prayer, or even to believe that it won't work. But I encourage you to lean into prayer in these times, even if it feels unnatural. Jesus, even in his most scared, literally before he was put to death, he spent hours in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying to God, crying out. We can and we should do the same. Pray by yourself. Pray with your family. Pray with your church community. God is always listening, always working, always sovereign. Even when we doubt it, even when we don't feel it, he is always there. I've given my suggestions. I hope they were helpful. But Claire also has some final thoughts on caring for communities from afar.
The first thing I'd say is if you feel able to, there are many wonderful flood relief charities that you can make a donation to, both local ones and national ones. Whether your preference is to buy a bale of hay for a farmer, or whether it be to channel money to other forms of aid. If you would like to donate goods, please donate in a targeted way. Because the charities and the churches can get overwhelmed by second-hand goods that we then have to store and dispose of. And it's much, much better to give people the dignity of choosing what it is, what help they need. So there are wonderful websites like Give It, local Facebook pages just saying what people most need. I guess the need that often gets forgotten that people can really help us with is simply not to forget us. We have been through traumatising bushfires 12 months ago that we haven't really had a chance to recover and process from because of COVID. As a community, we haven't yet had a chance to do that healing. And we're just aware that the wonderful agencies who are doing such great work in this first phase of recovery will move on. We could really do with people who will just journey with us as the needs continue to unfold, as the bruises start to be felt. So please, I would just say to some of your listeners, call us in a month's time and ask us how we're doing. Call us in 3 months' time and ask us how we're doing. Call us in 6 months' time and ask us how you can pray for us, because some of us won't be fine yet at that stage, and it will do us the world of good to know that our brothers and sisters haven't forgotten.
Thank you so much to Reverend Claire Wright for taking the time to share about the power of churches in times of disaster. I hope that you got something out of this episode and are inspired to do what you can to help others in need as we approach the Christmas season. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can send me an email, a review, or share it with your friends. Stories are always better when they're shared, and you never know what you can learn from someone else's journey. If you or someone you know has a story of hope to share and you'd like to be interviewed for the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the Finding Hope page at hopepodcasts.com.au. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Luke 6, verse 28. Catch you next time.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.